Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be unlocking some secrets, some really fascinating insights about the executive brain.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're diving into chapter 14,
Mhm.
and honestly, it's just jam-packed with amazing stuff about how this part of our brain, really shapes our thoughts and actions, even who we are.
Right.
Like, ever wonder how you make decisions, plan for the future, or even just resist that extra slice of cake?
Yeah.
That's your executive brain working hard.
I think one of the best ways to really understand how powerful the executive brain is to look at how it evolved.
Okay.
So imagine if you start with a simple frog brain, then you picture like a cat brain, then a monkey's, and then finally our own human brain.
Like we're going up a ladder of complexity.
Exactly. And each step up reveals a larger and more complex neocortex, so that outer layer of the brain.
Right.
And the neocortex allows for more sophisticated thinking and behavior.
So for humans, is that where things get really interesting?
It is. In humans, the prefrontal cortex, a key part of the neocortex, is remarkably developed. And that's not just a random fact. It's directly linked to our ability to have these complex social interactions, use tools, and pursue goals. It's like some of the things that make us uniquely human.
I see, yeah. And it makes sense that, a more complex brain would need a very powerful system for managing all of that information that's coming in.
Absolutely. And that's where working memory comes in.
Okay.
Think of it as your brain's mental workspace. So it's where you hold information temporarily while you process it, make decisions, and solve problems.
Okay, so it's kind of like a mental juggling act, right? You can only keep so many things up in the air at once.
That's a really good analogy, though working memory is much more intricate than juggling.
Right.
The chapter dives into how it relies on these fascinating things called transient links. So imagine them as like temporary connections forming between brain cells to hold on to pieces of information.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I'm starting to see why distractions can just completely derail my train of thought.
Exactly, because distractions disrupt those transient links and makes it harder for working memory to function smoothly.
Right.
The chapter also mentions that brain oscillations play a role in organizing and maintaining information in working memory.
Brain oscillations.
Yeah.
Okay. What are brain oscillations?
So imagine your brain as an orchestra
Okay.
with different sections playing different rhythms.
Uh,
These rhythms, or oscillations, help synchronize activity across various brain regions.
I see.
The chapter specifically mentions gamma and theta rhythms, which seem to be involved in coordinating information within working memory.
So distractions disrupt those rhythms, and that messes with our working memory.
Precisely. It's like someone suddenly banging a drum in the middle of an orchestral performance.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm really curious about how the prefrontal cortex actually uses all that information from working memory. It sounds like that's where the real decision-making happens.
You're right. The prefrontal cortex, especially the lateral prefrontal cortex, plays a crucial role in using information from working memory to solve problems and make decisions. So it helps us set goals, plan steps, and resist impulses.
Right, but we all know our brains can get stuck sometimes.
Yeah.
Like when you keep trying the same wrong password over and over again,
Yeah.
even though you know it's not working.
Right.
You just
That's a great example of what's called perseveration.
perseveration.
Yes, it's our brains clinging to old solutions even when they're clearly not effective. Researchers actually study this using something called the Wisconsin card sorting task, where people have to adapt to changing rules.
So people with damage to their prefrontal cortex might really struggle in a task like that.
Exactly. It highlights how important the prefrontal cortex is for flexible thinking and adapting to new situations.
Okay, so we've got this incredible prefrontal cortex working with our working memory to help us solve problems, make decisions. But what about our emotions? Do they play a role in all of this?
They absolutely do. And that's where another fascinating brain region comes into play, the orbitofrontal cortex.
Okay.
It's like a bridge between our emotions and our decision-making processes.
So that gut feeling we get, that's the orbitofrontal cortex talking.
You got it.
Yeah.
It helps us evaluate potential risks and rewards, often on a subconscious level.
Oh, wow.
The book gives this great example. Imagine narrowly avoiding a truck while crossing the street.
Okay.
Later, you might feel uneasy in that same spot, even if you don't consciously remember the incident.
So our brains are making these connections without us even realizing it.
Precisely. The orbitofrontal cortex has learned to associate that location with danger, and it's signaling a warning, even without conscious thought.
Wow, that's incredible. And a little unnerving. It makes you realize just how much is happening beneath the surface of our awareness.
It certainly does. It makes you appreciate the incredible complexity of the executive brain, but we're just getting started.
I'm ready to dive deeper. What else does this chapter have in store for us?
Well, we've been talking about how our brains learn from experience, even subconsciously. But what about learning from our mistakes? That's where the anterior cingulate cortex comes in.
So is that like our brain's error detection system?
That's a great way to think about it. The anterior cingulate cortex constantly monitors our actions and outcomes, sending out signals when things aren't going as planned. It helps us catch mistakes, adjust our strategies, and ultimately improve our performance.
It's almost like having like an internal coach who's always pushing us to do better.
Exactly. And this ability to learn from our mistakes is crucial for success in, virtually every aspect of life, from learning new skills to navigating complex social situations.
Okay, so we've got this intricate network of brain regions
Yeah.
working together to help us think, plan, make decisions, learn from experiences, good and bad. But what about those times when we're acting without even thinking? Like driving a car or playing a musical instrument, it's like we're on autopilot.
That's a great point, and it highlights how incredibly efficient our brains are. With practice, complex actions can become so ingrained that we can perform them without conscious thought.
It's a good thing too, right? I mean, if we had to consciously think about every tiny movement involved in driving, we'd probably never get anywhere.
Exactly. This automation frees up our conscious minds to focus on other things.
But I'm curious, what happens if there is a problem in the anterior cingulate cortex? Does that affect this, autopilot ability?
Not directly, but problems in the anterior cingulate cortex can lead to difficulties with error detection, attention, and emotional regulation. This can have a significant impact on daily life, make it harder to focus, learn from mistakes, and manage emotions effectively.
So it's not about losing the ability to go on autopilot, but more about the brain's ability to, like, catch those slip-ups and adjust accordingly.
Precisely. The anterior cingulate cortex plays a vital role in that feedback loop. And speaking of feedback loops, this chapter also touches on something really fascinating: neuroplasticity.
I've heard that term before. It's about the brain's ability to change and adapt, right?
That's right. It means our brains aren't fixed or static. They're constantly changing in response to our experiences and behaviors. And this is true throughout life, not just in childhood.
So even though our brains are fully developed by adulthood, they can still learn new tricks.
Absolutely. And there's growing evidence that certain activities can actually enhance neuroplasticity, strengthening existing neural connections and even creating new ones. Think of things like learning a new language, playing a musical instrument, or engaging in mindfulness meditation.
So if I were to start learning the guitar today, I could actually rewire my brain.
In a sense, yes. Those activities challenge your brain, forcing it to adapt and grow.
That's incredible. It's like giving your brain a workout.
Precisely. And just like physical exercise strengthens our bodies, mental exercise strengthens our brains. But just as with our physical health, our brains also face challenges. Things like stress, fatigue, and even certain medical conditions can impair executive function.
So that foggy feeling you get when you're sleep deprived, that's your executive brain struggling to keep up.
Exactly. Those states disrupt the delicate balance of neurochemicals and brain activity. That's essential for the executive brain to function at its best.
So what can we do about it? Are there ways to, like, protect our brains from those negative effects?
Absolutely. Getting enough sleep, managing stress, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle are all crucial for supporting executive function.
It's like giving your brain the fuel it needs to run smoothly. But are there specific things we can do beyond just, living a healthy lifestyle, like strategies to improve our executive function in everyday life?
There are. One effective technique is called chunking. It involves breaking down complex information into smaller, more manageable pieces.
So instead of trying to remember a long grocery list, you could group items into categories,
Yeah.
like produce, dairy, and snacks. That makes it easier for working memory to handle it all.
Exactly. It's a simple but powerful strategy. Another helpful technique is using visual aids, like diagrams or mind maps.
So turning those abstract ideas into something more concrete. I like that.
It can be particularly helpful for visual learners.
This is also fascinating. It really highlights how understanding our brains can empower us to make positive changes.
That's the key takeaway here. The more we understand how our brains work, the better equipped we are to take care of them and optimize our cognitive abilities. We're not just passive passengers in our own heads. We can actively shape our brain health and function.
Now, that's an empowering thought. This chapter has been so insightful. But I'm ready for some real-world examples. Did the chapter delve into any case studies that illustrate these concepts? Yeah, it would be great to hear about some real-life cases that, like, highlight the power and the vulnerabilities of the executive brain.
There are a couple of fascinating examples. One classic case that really underscores the importance of the prefrontal cortex is the story of Phineas Gage.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him. He was the railroad worker who had that horrible accident in the 1800s, right?
That's right. In 1848, Gage was working on a railroad construction site when an explosion sent a tamping iron straight through his skull, severely damaging his prefrontal cortex.
It's hard to even imagine surviving something like that.
It's remarkable that he did, and while Gage physically recovered, his personality underwent a dramatic transformation. Before the accident, he was known as responsible, hardworking, and well-respected. But after the injury, he became impulsive, unreliable, and prone to outbursts of anger.
So the damage to his prefrontal cortex actually changed who he was as a person.
It's a striking example of how this brain region plays a crucial role in regulating emotions, controlling impulses, and guiding our behavior.
It's both fascinating and a little unsettling to think how much our personality depends on the proper functioning of this one brain area.
It certainly highlights the importance of protecting our brains from injury. Now, for another example that focuses on a different part of the executive brain, the chapter touches on obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD.
OCD, okay. So that's characterized by intrusive thoughts and repetitive behaviors, right?
Exactly. And research suggests that people with OCD may have an overactive anterior cingulate cortex, leading to a heightened sense of error detection and a constant need to correct perceived mistakes.
So that feeling of something being not quite right is amplified in people with OCD.
Precisely. And this can manifest in those repetitive behaviors we see, like excessive hand washing or repeatedly checking locks.
Like their brains are stuck in a loop,
Yeah,
constantly sending out those error signals.
that's a good analogy. And it underscores how even subtle disruptions in brain function can have significant impacts on our thoughts and behaviors.
It's amazing how much we're learning about the brain and its complexities.
We're only just scratching the surface. There's still so much more to discover about the executive brain and how it shapes who we are.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've gone from the evolution of the neocortex to the intricacies of working memory, the prefrontal cortex, the orbitofrontal cortex, and the anterior cingulate cortex.
And we've seen how these brain regions work together to enable us to plan, make decisions, regulate our emotions, and learn from our experiences.
We've even touched on the potential for improving our brain function and protecting our brains from damage.
The executive brain is a powerful force in our lives. Understanding how it works can give us all greater insight into ourselves and empower us to make more informed choices.
So the next time you're wrestling with a tough decision or struggling to stay focused, remember the incredible power of your executive brain. And remember, you have the ability to nurture and strengthen this vital part of yourself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it enlightening.
It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating topic with you.